In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace a radiator in a RAV4 2.5 liter engine. It's located in the front bumper, front side of the engine. Before doing any work on AC, make sure you get your AC Freon recovered, and that can be done by a professional shop. To remove the negative cable, you need a 10mm wrench or socket. I prefer a wrench, and you're going to back that nut right off that stud. Take that right off. You don't have to take it all the way, just enough to loosen it. You'll see that wobble. Lift it up and always secure it somewhere where it won't go back up and ground itself out. So now that we've raised it from underneath, I'm going to start at the driver's side fender well, under and go over. You only have to undo this outer screw and this screw. So follow your bumper cover line, and those are the two screws, both on the passenger side and driver's side. 10mm socket. Pull those back out. And now I'll go to the passenger side and do the same two screws. Now we're working from the center over. So I took my two bolts out on both sides, and there's 4 center bolts holding the undercarriage of that bumper cover to this splash shield. You don't have to take that splash shield down. 10mm socket, and we'll take all 4 of these out. And now we can lower it. So you can see the top mount. There's 2 push pins in the center, then 2 mounting bolts on either side. Now we're going to take this push pin out with a little trim tool. I like to use the fork style. Pull it right up. Both sides. Let's get that right there. Now we have 10mm socket, and we're going to take driver's side 2 out first. Then we'll move over to the passenger side. I'm going to do the outer side first, and then the inner one, just in case I balance the weight. So before you pull that bumper cover off, you have to pull it out from the trim piece underneath here. There's a mounting bracket, and it just clips in. Both sides are the same, passenger and driver's side. I'm on the driver's side now, so I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to grab firmly down here and pull out, just like that. And then do the same to the passenger side. Work your way back to the center. So now we're ready to pull the bumper cover off, and what I do is I like to grab midway if I have a chance and hold it up on the top and just pull it out. Separate it from both sides. So now with the bumper off, we have to take this undercarriage shield off. 10mm head on this bolt right here. Take that one off. Get it out of the way. And then follow your shield across. There should be a plastic push pin right there. Ours is broken, but there's the other 2. Then there's another screw on this side. Same 10mm socket. Now I'll get my trim tool and take that piece out, those 2 clips out. So with a trim tool, we're going to go right in and just pop this clip right out. There we go. Take this down. There's also a clip right here, which I was unaware of because the other side is missing. So let's take that one out. There we go. And then take our shield down. Now with a 10mm socket, I'm going to take the top AC condenser line off, take that bolt out. Now you can pull that line out, just wiggle it. You might get some residual air, like a little sound, suction. Now we're going to move to the bottom one. Same 10mm socket. Remove that bolt. And then same way, just wiggle it and move it out. Now from the front of the vehicle, I'm going to take both harnesses off the horn assemblies by squeezing this tab in and pulling down, like that. Same with the other horn. Now I'm going to take this brace out of the way. There's 2 bolts right here with a 10mm socket. And then the top one. Now I can guide that bracket right up and out. Now with a 10mm socket, I'm going to remove both headlight assemblies, and the 2 top mounts are one's here and one there. Just take that bolt out. And now if you follow the headlight down, there's one on the side here, same socket. So if you follow the headlight down, the bumper bracket, it's the hole right here, 10mm socket. Get that out of the way. Now follow the headlight assembly inside the engine compartment in this last bolt right there, 10mm socket. Now we can remove our headlight assembly. The top part right here has a little notch. You gotta lift that up and then pull towards you. And we gotta disconnect the electrical connector. One there, one there. I can bring it up a little bit. And the last one's right here. Just take this little clip out, simply push on one side, tilt it, and then do the same to the inside. Same thing on this little clip. And then the marker light, push in on this tab, pull. Follow the same procedure to go to the other headlight. So now there's only 2 screws holding this upper support together. It's one here and identical on the other side. That's why you had to remove the headlight so you could get to this 10mm socket. Go to the other side, do the same one. And just grab that upper mount, set it aside. 4 plastic push pins holding this top plastic piece in. We got to remove those. Flathead screwdriver or a trim tool. So now I got to take the battery hold down off, and that's a 10mm socket. Lift that up. Just set that, pull up, push it back. I'm going to put it right back in. It's not in the way anymore. Now we can lift that plastic piece up, pull it right out. So to access the condenser, they want you to take this piece off, then the hood release cable and bracket, then this piece off, and then take the whole cross member off. I'm going to do one ahead of that. I'm going to take these 2 bolts off, those 2 bolts right there, leave the assembly on, disconnect my harnesses or anything on the back side, and take that whole bracket off as one piece. We won't have to worry about lining up that hood latch after. So let's go with it. 12mm socket. Do the same thing to the other side. So on the other side here, all I see is the hood release cable to the latch, but we're going to leave that attached. Just going to follow this electrical connector over with a trim tool. I'm going to just reach in there and pop this out. One there, and then the last one right here. There we go. Now if you watch, you can just lift this whole bracket right up, leave that cable attached, and just put it right out of the way. Right over there. So now we're just going to follow this tube line, the coolant tube, and pop it right out of that bracket. And there's 2 mounts, one here and one identical to the other side. It's a 12mm socket. Disconnect it. So before we unclip the top plastic piece, just take these rubber mounts out of the way, set them aside. And now with a flathead screwdriver or a trim tool, you're going to just go in here and pop this out, just like that. And then there's one more over here. Now we can lift this piece up and out. And now I can remove the AC condenser. So before we disconnect anything else, we have to drain the coolant. So get a catch basin underneath, and the drain plug for the radiator is right below that battery. And you'll see this midway hose. You can have the freedom now to tilt it a little bit. I'm going to use a pair of pliers, and I'm just going to grab that and twist it counterclockwise. Then you can finish it by hand, and we'll let that drain out in that catch basin. While that's draining, I can start undoing all the other stuff. So I'm going to take the radiator cap off this overflow tank just to give it vacuum so it drops, the fluid will actually drain. It kind of stopped draining, and that's because it created a vacuum. You'll hear it stop pouring out faster. Perfect. And now you start seeing the level go down. Now we're filling that bucket up, and it's safe to start disconnecting all the other stuff on the top here. So we have this overflow hose that we already took out of the bracket, followed over, and it's connected right here. A pair of pliers, squeeze the clamp, get it out of the way. Gently take a pair of pliers and twist it. Then you can just pull that right off that. Kind of tilt this the best you can, up and out of the way. and we'll follow, and we have another hose right here. Now, as you can see, that level's not down yet. I'm gonna wait for that to come down, because if not, it's gonna pour right out of here. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna disconnect the harness that goes all the way around. Get my trim tool, start disconnecting the electrical harness, popping it right out of that fan shroud. We're at the fan motors themselves. That is, push down this tab, squeeze it and pull. So with a screwdriver, I'm going to just push in lightly on this tab, and then I can pull that connector right out. Follow it over. My connector, unfortunately, looks like it's broken. If not, you would push down on that tab the same way. Now we can follow the rest of the harness around. All right, so our electrical connector is to the both fan motors is disconnected and out of the way. Now we can see the overflow is low, which is perfect. Now I can disconnect that hose. A pair of pliers, squeeze the tab, then gently give it a little twist. Set it aside. So most of the coolant's out now, so I feel safe enough to disconnect this hose on the driver's side. And that's a expansion clamp. I've got the special tool. You can use a pair of pliers. You're gonna squeeze that. Get that clamp right out of the way. You can release it. Now I'm gonna grab that and try to wiggle it. See if I can release it. There we go. Nice. So now we're on the passenger side of the radiator, and the lower radiator hose is right down there. I put another little bucket down there because I'm sure I'll get some residual coolant. And with my expansion clamp tool, you can use a pair of pliers. I'll squeeze that clamp. See if I can back it off the hose. All right, so now we can take that hose off that radiator. All right, good thing I had that bucket there. Now we can grab the radiator and the fan assembly as one piece and hopefully pull it right up and out. Disconnect it from the bottom mounts. So now I'm going to take the radiator out of that fan assembly, and to access that, I need to tip it upside down. I'm going to tighten my little drain plug in case there's any residual, which I see coming out right now. So now on the bottom half of this, you'll see two bolts. It's a 12mm socket or wrench, and we're going to take those right out. Now we can grab that radiator, completely separate it from that fan. Just pull it right out and lift it up. So with your new radiator, you're going to get 4 of these little square nuts, and they fit right where the bolts go for the mounting. And to put them in, you'll see a little slot there. Line them up as a square and push it in until it locks. You hear that click? And you'll do that to all 4 corners of the radiator. Now it's time to put the new fan assembly onto the radiator. We're going to lift that up. Got it right in. And then you'll have that those 2 mounting bolts on the bottom here. So I'm going to grab one of them. Start it right there. Always start by hand. So let's give it a flip. See if we can get to the other side. Make sure you line it up. There's a little guide pin right there too. Start that by hand. Not too tight, that is plastic. Just snug it up. Now with my 12mm socket, I'm going to torque these 2 mounting bolts to 8 foot-pounds. I'm going to rotate my assembly around, making sure the fans face the engine. Before we install it, confirm that the 2 bushings that are going to go right here like that are still in that bottom radiator support, flush and mounted nice and tight. One last thing, petcock, make sure it's tight even if it's a new radiator. Sometimes they come loose. Give it a nice snug. Make sure it's not going to leak on you. Let's bring it up. Place it right in those mounts. That one's in, and that one's in. Now we're going to put that low radiator hose back on. I'm just going to put the hook down in there. See if I can slide it over the top there. Nice. Now we can guide it on. There we go. Make sure it's nice and flush. Let's get our special pliers. Put that expansion clamp back on. Now the key to these is to line them up to the old marks so they don't cause any leaks. Making sure that hose is nice and flush. I'll release that clamp pressure. So now I'm going to stay on the passenger side here. I'm going to put this upper coolant hose on. Line that mark up. You don't want it to leak. And now I can move on to my electrical harness for the fans. Start guiding it into the mounted holes for it. Follow it down. This one unfortunately is broken, but let's see. Might use a wire tie to hold that in place. Now we're on the driver's side. That fan. Line it up. Let it click. Now we can attach this other radiator hose. Now let's grab that hose and remount it on that. Make sure it's snug. We can get our pair of pliers or our expansion clamp pliers. Line up those marks. So now we can put our overflow tank hose right on the top, right here in front of the battery. Get our pliers. Line it up. There we go. Pop it right into place. Both mounts are in the bottom. Now I'm going to take my lines, make sure they have nice fresh PAG oil on them. Line them right up. There we go. Now take our bolt. Start it by hand. There we go. Get my 10mm socket. There we go. Now with my 10mm socket, I'm going to torque these to 89 inch-pounds. That's the bottom. Now we can do the top. Let's put that condenser back in the mounting hole, shall I say, on the bottom. Get that boot to go right in. There we go. Now we can put our top plastic cover on. That mounts it to the actual fan and radiator. Line up the shroud. Push it down in. You have those two mounting bolts. That's a 12mm socket head to that radiator. Line it up. Start it by hand. Now with my 12mm socket, I'm going to torque this to 8 foot-pounds. Do the same to the other side. So now I'm going to take my coolant overflow and just snap it back in, make sure it's all in place. Take that upper radiator support with the hood latch on it, guide it right down. Don't forget those rubber bushings. Put it on the other side too. There we go. Now we could line everything up. Make sure it goes in on there. Now I can start my radiator support bracket bolts. All 4 of them. Make sure that radiator stays right in place. Now we can put our plastic cover on, bring that right around, make sure everything lines up. Here we go. So now we're going to put our battery hold down in place. Start that bolt by hand with a 10mm socket. I'm going to mount it, just snug it up, make sure this bolt is tight too. There you go. So now with our body push pins, we're going to line them up and reconnect the plastic. Go straight across over to the passenger side, doing the same thing. There's 4 total. Now we can put on our brace that has the horn mounted to it. Goes just like so. Line up those little tabs, there's one on both sides, and let it rest. Start this by hand. Just 2 bolts mount this to the body, one on both sides, identical spots. It's a 10mm socket. Before I mount that though, what I'm going to suggest doing is putting that horn bracket in so they're all lined up so it's not fighting with it. So with that horn bracket brace, I'm going to guide it down. I'm going to at least put the top mount in. Just start it by hand. And then I'm going to move down to the bottom and line that up. So now I have the freedom, because that's not all tight, to make sure I get this centered. There we go. Now with a 10mm socket, we're going to tighten that up. I'm going to do the brace first, top. Passenger side. Move over to the center. And then to the bottom. Now we can reconnect our horns. The lower one and then the upper one. So now we're all set to put our headlight assemblies back in. So I'm going to do the passenger side first, then follow it over to the driver's side. So the good thing is they're pretty much color coded. The white connector connects there. Just follow suit right around. The small brown one goes all the way up here to the marker light. And just follow the tabs, push them right into place. And then the headlight. I'm going to leave that aside for now, because I want to rest my headlight in here. Make sure that tab goes up over the top. There we go. Let it snap right down in place. Same with this one in the front. Now I'm going to plug my headlight in. Only because it was, you would drop the headlight. You have to hold it tightly. So that tab goes on the lock side. line it up, and just push it till it clicks. There we go. So you have 4 mounting, 3 screws, and 1 bolt thread. The 3 screws go in the top, which is one there, one right here, and the other one is right down here. Then the one on the side, which is going to go right into this spot, has the machine thread. It's a threaded bolt, 10mm socket. And now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now we're going to put our undercarriage splash shield back up. And there's 4 of these push pins. I'm going to put the center one in first and hold it there while I get the rest. Line this bumper up, the actual fender well. There's one right in here. And then we're going to want to line this up. Just like that. Do the same to the driver's side. Put the front bumper back on. We're going to lift it up. Make sure it clears everything. I like to put it right in the center first, the best I can. Make sure you get that fender flared on each side. So make sure it's lined up. You can see it right there. And then you just take your hand and pop it in place, just like that. And do the same to the passenger side. Now I'm going to start from the top and work my way from the center out. Then we'll raise it up and put the rest of it on. 2 push pins right in the center. And then 4 bolts. They're 6mm by 1.0 pitch. $10mm socket, and let's snug those up. All right, now we can raise it up. Now that it's raised up, I'm going to put the 4 bolts in the front here where it's connected to that splash shield, and they're regular 6mm bolts, 10mm socket. Just put them all in straight across. And then the last one in the underneath here. And it's the same procedure on the passenger side. When reinstalling the negative cable, make sure there's no grease. And if you have a wire brush, please clean the terminal ends. Now do not leave it like that. Make sure you bring it all the way to the bottom of that lead stud. Now with your 10mm, you're going to tighten it up. Now my little secret is I always hold my hand on the end here. So when I put pressure here and I tighten it, I don't put pressure on that terminal stud. That way the lead doesn't break off inside the battery. To make sure it's tight, confirm. So now we can add our coolant back. You're going to put all the coolant back in. You're going to fill it up right just to the cold mark. I took about 1.5 gallons out, so I'm going to replace all of it until it settles down and it's at the cold mark. Then I'm going to put the cap back on, run it for 45 minutes, make sure the fans come on. If it takes 50 minutes, it takes 50 minutes. Once the fans come on, let it settle for about an hour, cool itself down, and make sure that stays right at the cold mark when it's cold. And if it's been running, it should rise up to the full mark. Now that the AC system is complete and repaired, it's time to get the AC vacuumed and filled with Freon. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.